What do you do when everyday sensations like bright lights, loud noises, or even the feeling of clothing become too much for a child to handle? When the world feels overwhelming, how can we understand their experience and support them in making sense of it?
Hello and welcome to the Sensational Life with Bibic. I'm Abby
And I'm Natalie.
and we are developmental therapists at Bibic.
Each week we're going to dive into the many layers of life with honesty, heart, and a little bit of humour, because let's face it, navigating the world with additional needs can be tough, but it also can be empowering, inspiring, and yes, a little bit sensational.
Bibic is a national charity that supports many individuals with neurological or developmental challenges, and this podcast is our way of bringing support, tips and real stories straight to you.
This season we're talking all things education, from navigating the classroom with confidence, discovering learning strategies. We're unpacking it all with some great guests too. So whether you're a parent, a teacher, or someone that just wants to better understand how to support the SEND community, you're in the right place.
So grab a cuppa, get comfy, and let's make the world a little more inclusive, one episode at a time.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sensational Life with Bibic. Thank you for waiting for us. We have been really busy recording and getting everything together ready for you guys to listen to our next season. So we are on season 2 and this season is all things education. So we're talking home education, in-school education, learning, engagement in learning. Got lots and lots of guests, and Abby, you've been very, very busy, haven't you? I can't take any credit at all.
I think you can take some credit, but we've both been beavering away in the background, just trying to get on as many guests who are going to have all of these insightful thoughts, and we can have these conversations with them. And I'm really excited about what they're going to bring to the podcast.
100%. We are on take 3 of this current episode, so just bear with us. It's Monday morning. No, it's not even Monday morning, Abby.
It's Monday afternoon.
I feel that's the problem.
Yeah.
We thought we'd get started on this episode, all things sensory processing, because that tends to be, especially in assessments and things like that, it tends to be our foundation. And I know in our season 1 we went into it a little bit, but not maybe as in depth as we probably will go today. So if you haven't, go back and listen to season 1. Series 1, we can't decide. Series 1.
You pick. But sensory processing, like Nat said, kind of underpins a lot of things. So if we can regulate the sensory system, we're going to feel more in control. You're less likely to go into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, which again we spoke about in season 1. But yeah, so if we can really get this regulated and sorted, it can help with concentration and emotional regulation and all sorts of things. I know when we explain it to parents, we use a picture of a pyramid, which can you find it on the website?
Yeah, I believe it's on our resources.
On the website, but we might link a picture or something to it underneath, so you can see. We use that as the foundation of the pyramid. You've got your 8 senses, so the 5 typical ones that everyone knows about, and then you've got the 3 extra ones. So you've got your vestibular sense, which is your kind of like your body's internal spirit level, which way up you are. You've got your proprioceptive sense, so you've got receptors in your joints and your muscles that let you know where you are in relation to the room. And then you've got your interoception sense, which is your body's internal needs.
Yeah, and it links to your body's homeostasis. So it's basically your body's awareness of everything internal and how it feels. And actually it can be quite a vital one, especially when it comes to, I guess, sort of communication and awareness of sort of what we're feeling, because you think probably every child or every parent that you speak to, you've got that child where it's like, put your coat on. No, I'm not. I'm not
cold.
Yeah, I was going to say tired.
Guess what Nat's feeling.
But yeah, I'm not cold or I'm too hot and things like that. And actually, if we go into sort of your homeostasis a little bit, not only does it link to your internal senses of hunger, thirst, fullness, sort of need in the toilet as well, which sometimes we go into a little bit as well, because you think your internal sense of needing to go for a wee, for example, doesn't become an awareness until it turns into a touch sense, and then we're desperate. But it also links to our emotions, and I found this actually really interesting because it makes so much sense of why emotions are so complicated. And talking about crying again, because me and Abby do that a lot.
We don't. I just like to put.
I mean, like we talk about it a lot, not that we
about
cry
crying a lot.
It's just the easiest emotion to
Yeah.
go to, isn't it? But you think, if I feel like I'm going to cry, I get like a sensation, like a lump in my throat, a lot of people say.
Yeah.
You say you get different.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I do feel the lump in my throat. That tends to be if I'm trying to swallow it down. But usually it starts with like a little tingle in my nose, and it really starts to hurt in my nose. Yeah.
Whereas you think with children, if they're struggling to understand and communicate emotions, and we know emotions are so complex, how are you meant to try and support that child to understand their emotions if we all feel it completely different? And I was having a great conversation with a family the other day about emotions, because we often go straight to calm hands, or is it kind hands, there you go, kind hands and things like that. But what does that actually mean? And again, we often use things like emotion cards, and you've got like colours linked with faces and things like that. And we were having this discussion because the particular individual was really struggling with those emotion cards because they were feeling all of the emotions. And I think apparently they were in the car, had some blue tack, and they put blue tack on 3 emotions, and I think it was something like happy, excited, and worried. I think it was all of those. So actually, our emotions are just so complicated, and I think
that's really complex. But I mean, how amazing that they were able to communicate that they were feeling all of those emotions, because it'd be quite hard to unpick sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought, whilst we were talking about the homeostasis, it's worth sort of noting actually that it also links to our emotions.
Yeah, I think it's really good. But going back to this pyramid, you've got all of that underpinning everything, and then you move on up the tier to like the gross motor side of things. So your balance, how you're going to move your body, how much force you're going to put into your body, into that movement.
Get from A to B without walking into the table.
Can I do that? No. You've got your ability to screen input. So the brain's a wonderful thing, and it takes in loads of sensory information at one time. But it's really good at filtering out what isn't important for you to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I think that links to a lot of the time we use that saying, isn't it? You can ask a child to do one of 2 things: sit still or listen.
Yeah.
Because it's the way that the sensory system is
regulating itself.
Yeah, removing information. Can I actually pay attention and look at the board without noticing the butterfly flying past the window and Tony in the background rustling in his bag?
Or Tony.
I know, I don't know why I get Tony. Tony.
But you've also got your reflexes that we're born with as babies, like the startle reflex and the Moro reflex. And
I think your Moro reflex is your startle reflex.
Oh, is it the same?
Yeah, I always get confused.
I always list them both, and I don't think it is. But even like the suckle reflex.
Yes,
and
that's
things like
it.
that. You, as you get older, we lose these reflexes because our senses take over the role of keeping us safe. So that's why those reflexes tend to be lost as we get older, because the senses have taken over that role.
So our sensories aren't fully integrated until 7. And also you think actually if your sensory system isn't fully working in action until 7, that's reception year 1, full of still working through our reflexes. And something I've also really noticed more and more is sensory processing doesn't have to link to neurodivergence. No. It can be something quite standalone. And I think this is also something potentially to take into consideration, that yes, 100%, people with neurodiversities, whether it is a neurodivergence like ADHD, autism, or anything else in terms of processing, work and memory, they are going to have some element of sensory processing because it's such a fundamental thing that our body does. However, the world that we live in now, I don't see children doing what I did when I was younger, and I like to say, I try to remind myself I'm not that old.
No, you're not. You're younger than me.
But like when I was younger, I remember we didn't have all the video games that we have, or the YouTube videos we've got and things like that. So we're not spending so much time on fast-paced imagery, because also that's had an impact on sort of our attention spans and things like that. We were out playing more, we were making mud pies or potions in the bathrooms. Now children still do that, but they don't get to do it as much as we used to, especially those individuals around COVID. Oh no, I've said the word. I said COVID.
You said it out loud.
But that's something to take into consideration.
Well, there was so much to juggle during that time. You had parents still trying to work at home and things like that, and
educate even teachers. Now, what was it? I went to some safeguarding. We had our safeguarding update to do the other day, and there was a lady talking in there, and she said even teachers trying to educate their own children at home in COVID was a complete different kettle of fish.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
Trying to do it at home because their children are just not used to that's their downtime. They're
it's
at
like
home.
Compartmentalizing it, isn't it? Yeah,
completely.
But yeah, and I think that's something to take into consideration when we talk about sensory processing, that you don't necessarily have to have a neurodivergence.
Mm-hmm.
You still can find situations overwhelming, and the fundamental thing is aiding in regulating your sensory system by using your vestibular proprioception.
Yeah, I mean, you've already said that it doesn't really sort itself out until the age of 7.
No.
That's when it kind of comes into play.
Hormones become a wonderful thing.
Hormones have a lot to answer for, because
it comes back again, doesn't it?
Yes, at the usual teenage time. They're glorious things, hormones. So you think you've got it under wraps, and then it all changes again.
I know, I hate saying that to families in assessments. Like, just to let you know, fully integrates at 7, but just be prepared that next stage of the hormones, we've got to do it all again.
Yeah, it might change again. But everyone has a sensory system.
Yeah.
Everyone regulates it in different ways.
100%.
So although the goal of this pyramid is to regulate the foundation so that you can achieve in academic learning, as it's this series, or participating in daily living skills, or what's perceived as acceptable behaviour in society at the moment. I say that in a tone because
that was a hell of a tone.
It was a bit of a tone, wasn't it? Yeah. But I think our listeners will know what I mean. Like, there's a perceived pressure around behaving in a certain way, when actually, if you are regulating your sensory system, that's still a perfectly acceptable thing to do, so that you can then participate in daily living skills.
And it's all about understanding, isn't it? It's all about sort of that awareness and understanding. And I know there's also a lot of sort of fear and worry, especially for sort of parents that do have children that struggle with their sensory processing, because actually in a state of overwhelm, when they've got some wonderful, I wish I could remember what advert it was, but they made a really wonderful advert to awareness around autism, and it was of a child going into a shopping centre, and it showed sort of like his vision going blurry and the noise and the difference, and I felt like, yes, that was sort of showing that understanding for autism, but I also feel like it could have been a really great understanding around sensory processing, because that's what happens. Like you said, screening out of input, actually it can be very difficult to look at a board and not acknowledge the butterfly going past your head, and
the seagulls. No.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that in. I absolutely knew you were going to bring that in. Even in our office.
We're horrendous in our office. And bear in mind, I think our office is very accepting of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So you've got people who have got fiddle objects to help them concentrate. People get up and go for walks to regulate their sensory system.
We all wear headphones or even loops. A lot of us have loops or headphones. And I think also that's the thing, isn't it? It's acknowledgement and awareness and those reasonable adjustments that you can make that isn't going to have a significant impact. And I think that's also going through this season is our main aim, isn't it, really, that actually there is quite a lot that we can do that is reasonable adjustments as such, even in education. I know it's sort of recommendation strategies, but reasonable adjustments that schools or families can make to that for that child, that therefore makes these difficulties that they have able to sort of manage as such. I want to say manage. I feel like that's more like a good...
Or just to make it more comfortable for these individuals on a day-to-day basis. I mean, sensory processing, I think, is something that as a society we are becoming more aware of.
Yeah.
I know when I was doing my training for teaching, it was not mentioned.
Do you know, when I didn't actually end up training to be a teacher, but I did a degree in education. And in my education degree, there was only it wasn't like a mandatory, it was like an optional extra to do a course on scent.
I know.
And I think I've also spoken to a lot of teachers, and they've said the same, that actually it's not and that's not to go anything against teachers, because
no, not at all. I think you individualise them.
Yeah.
There are many teachers who want to do their best,
100%,
but are just so limited with what they can.
They'll do their best
provide.
within the reasons of what they have, and I think that's something. And I also think with sort of going back to sort of the sensory side of things, like everyone has a different sensory threshold, so they're over responsive or under responsive. So you're hypo, but also the worst part is you can be both.
Oh, do you know what? That took me a minute to get my head around. Like, I can be oversensitive to sound, but also undersensitive to sound.
Yes,
Like,
and that's because I always thought of it as like, oh, I could be oversensitive to sound but undersensitive to touch.
Yeah.
But actually, no, like you said, within the same sense.
Yeah, you can be both.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-boggling, isn't it?
But this is actually where it's a little bit more challenging again for parents, because we often get that, but they really like loud music, or they're really loud, or they're always making lots and lots of noise, but then we go some other places and they really struggle with loud noises, and I can't understand why. So it might be at home, they want the TV on really loud, or they're playing really loud, but then in an educational setting, so a classroom setting, they really struggle with all the noise.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we have to have conversations about, like, it's to do with their control aspect. So when they're in their own environment, they control the noise to drown out the other noise, and that makes it even trickier, because are they then oversensitive or undersensitive in that situation?
It is really tricky to try and unpick. And you can see just from that little glimpse how distracting it could be to be either hyper or hyposensitive to just sound in general.
Yeah.
And how, if your sensory system isn't regulated, and we know it's not integrated until the age of 7, how this could look like inattention and kind of hyperactivity and impulsivity that you might see within the realms of ADHD. So it is really important, and anyone who comes into the assessment, we like to look at sensory to give that really good understanding.
Yeah, and we tend to sort of focus on it. So especially when it comes to our therapy plans, it's the first thing that we talk about, because actually it's sort of opening the gate into the other areas of going, if we can get to a point where we can regulate a sensory system to a certain extent, like, you're not going to get it perfect.
No.
But if we can, I don't know, for example, an assessment came in the other day, we realised that the individual was quite heightened. We then worked with them, regulated their sensory system to a certain extent, which then enabled us to start doing the activities. I wouldn't say they were regulated and calm, but they were able to work within the realms of what we needed from them. So I think I ended up doing an obstacle course. They then had a weighted blanket and a vibrating noodle on them whilst we were doing the activity. And then they were given structure. So they did 6 questions, and then they did their obstacle course again.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to sit and pay attention the whole time, but it was just enough to get what I needed.
Yeah.
And then they were able to play and regulate afterwards. So again, I think this is when it comes to the classroom, like, it is so challenging in a classroom environment, because you've got people that are going into overload, they're seeking, they're avoiding, and how that then impacts them. But there are things that we can do, snippets of things that we can do to try and sort of aid them throughout the day, because then, well, we could go into the flipping the lid situation at the end of the day that a lot of parents experience.
Yes, and that Coke bottle effect, isn't it? I had someone in the other week, and both of his parents were in, and had a conversation with the dad afterwards, because he was like, it was just so fascinating that in my head I needed him to sit down and concentrate to be able to do it. And you're like, no, it's fine, he can wander around, he can bounce on the ball. And he was bouncing on that ball, but engaging in everything and playing with the fiddle objects. And the dad saw afterwards that actually the impact that he was able to participate and join in and actually do really well on the things that I was asking him to do, because I wasn't asking him to sit still.
And I think that's what I like so much about our assessments, is because you have an opportunity to provide that window of actually when they're moving and shifting and bouncing and having those breaks, the level of engagement that you can get from them. And a lot of parents still find that they still have that level of engagement in the classroom because there's that element of masking that comes into it. However, it's the impact that has on them by the end of the day. So again, you go in, like you said, that fizzy bottle analogy, where you get a lot of parents that get the blowouts at home or the withdrawals at home, and then it's also managing that. So this is the joy of this, is yes, we're talking about the classroom, but we're also talking about the impact of learning at home as well. So in terms of sort of difficulties in the classroom, you do get sort of your sensory overload, so your distraction by sort of background noises or visual clutter. So it's beautiful, and classrooms are wonderful for all their presentations on the boards and their beautiful sort of board and stuff like that. But for some children, that can be quite visually overwhelming. I know when I've sort of sat in a classroom, I tend to spend the whole time looking at what's on the walls rather than actually paying attention. It was when I was in my placement, I used to was like, oh, what's that over there? Oh, that's a pretty board. Oh, I think I'm meant to be helping this group with a reading activity.
Yeah. Or if they've got to find something on the board and there's lots of information on there, they're not going to be able to, I say they, people who are in that sensory overwhelm are going to find it difficult to kind of use that visual figure ground and find where it is.
Find where that information is. It also might be bright lights, strong smells, or sort of unexpected touch. I know sort of some children have a tendency to sort of brush past each other as they walk around, or even in a line. That can be quite overwhelming, like how close people get to each other.
You get those children, again, speaking from experience in school, where they come up to ask you a question. And this time, like,
if you could see,
I was going to say there's a recording, but I'm right in Nat's personal space. Like, hello, I need to ask you this question. You're like, and step back. But they're seeking that touch and that feedback. You're welcome.
Abby. That was really enjoyable. You also get those that sort of seeking, so like I was saying, the sort of constant movement, touching objects. The one where it's sort of, they've got this funny video out at the moment, isn't it, when someone's following instructions and it's going, please touch this, please place the scissors in front of you, and then the person goes and picks up the scissors. It goes, if you've picked up the scissors, and then they put them down, it goes, whatever you do, don't put them back down. And you've got these people just like trying to follow everything. So you've got that one person, please don't pick up the piece of paper, and they picked up the piece of paper and started cutting it, and sort of got to start again. Or sort of loud noises and fidgeting excessively. I think I've twiddled with my hair so much today.
So if you can see the video, Nat is constantly twiddling. I was just thinking about those loud noises, and it made me laugh the other day because my niece, she's 3. She was going around making this noise, and my mum was going, what is that noise? What are you doing? And she was saying, I'm being Bluey. So if anyone's watched Bluey, there's an episode where Bluey's going around making a noise, and they're like, I'm annoying, but I like making it. She's going, whoop, whoop. Just constantly. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, I know what you're doing.
You've got sort of that sensory avoidance, so refusal to participate in messy activities, or discomfort with certain sort of textures, so clothes, food, materials. I know that can be a real big thing when it comes to uniform.
Oh, I know. So many individuals have come in and they are struggling with wearing like the trousers and things like that. Or you've got individuals that come in that can only wear summer dresses because the winter uniform is just too much, too close for them, or too rough. Seamless socks. Staple, I think.
And then you've got the impact this has on learning. So actually, if you think all of those things, it's going to reduce the level of focus and engagement. They're going to be the people that are being picked up on in terms of sort of movement and noise. They're going to have sort of emotional outbursts or withdrawal. And I think a lot of the time it is that withdrawal side rather than an emotional outburst. And then your sort of difficulty sitting still or completing tasks. Getting started on it might be the biggest challenge because they're trying to collect all the pieces of bits and paper and things they need, and actually they've got distracted on the way, gone out to drink out their water bottle or something like that. So it can be quite a lot, I think.
It can have a significant impact, can't it? And in terms of what you can do to support this,
dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Where are we going to go, Abby?
Love giving out strategies. So one of the things that we always talk about is calm and alert. Although I
Yeah.
did have a conversation with a parent the other day that it should be alert and calm, because that makes more sense, and I agree. So you'll use...
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, that was just mirror smashing moment.
I know, right?
Alert and calm, yeah.
It's alert and then sorry, this
Right.
is... Yeah.
We're going to have a conversation about this, aren't we? Because it is, you want to do your vestibular first rather than...
Yeah. So alert and calm links to your vestibular and your proprioceptive sense. These two senses are related to where you are within your body.
Yeah.
And if you think that your senses are there to keep you safe, if internally you're not really sure which way up your body is or where you are in the room, how on earth are you meant to concentrate on... Was it Tony chatting?
Yeah.
Tony chatting in the background.
Tony was in his bag.
Yeah, he's in his bag, but he's also chatting over there now.
Oh, God, Tony.
I know, Tony. And then you've got Sarah over there, and she's having a conversation with the teacher about something, and you've got Johnny reading a book to a TA, and there's a lot to take on. But if you're not sure where you are within yourself, you're not going to be able to filter out those extra sounds, or like there's a light that's really white and bright and I can't cope with it.
Yeah.
So by doing alerting and calming activities throughout the day, the aim is to regulate those two senses to help you cope with everything else.
So, Abby.
So, Natalie,
what is going to be an alert and calming situation in the classroom? Because that's the other thing we have to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because actually, what can an individual do in the classroom when there isn't probably enough time in the day to allow
there don't have to be big activities.
Yeah.
It's not, you need to do this every 15 minutes and it's 7 minutes each time. It's not going to take up a lot. So if parents are supporting this at home, brilliant. If at school this can also be supported, that's going to reduce that Coke bottle effect that we spoke about. So it's simple activities. So alerting, you could walk around and hand out resources for the teacher.
Yep.
That's movement. You're going to regulate that vestibular sense. If you're carrying exercise books and handing them out as well, that's also feeding into that proprioceptive sense. Double whammy. Bam.
Yeah.
Very, very simple things. Alternative seating.
Yeah.
So currently I am sat on an office chair, which I do not necessarily recommend for younger children because they are going to want to spin around. But you can get like the wobble cushions, which are going to enable those children to get that movement. Therabands. Like,
that's my favourite one, you see, because I feel, but also you just buy sort of the squat bands off Amazon.
Yeah.
Stick them around the chair legs, and then that child has the option to either bounce their legs off of the band or stick them behind the band and pull out.
Yeah.
And that's a really, because again, that's both, isn't it? That's the vestibular if they're bouncing the legs, and it's a proprioception if they're pulling the band off. So again, something quite subtle that you could do, and you could do it to every single
chair.
Yeah. And then it's not anyone singled out, because again, this is where it goes into sort of the neurodiversity aspect of people with things like ADHD, autism, and people without things like ADHD and autism. Everyone still has a sensory system that needs to be regulated. And there's a wonderful picture that we put in when we do our training on sensory processing, and it's of like the ideal classroom. It's like every chair has a tennis ball underneath the chair leg, so you can slide the chair. There's wobble cushions over one way, there's physio ball chairs over another, there's sort of lots of different things. And I know that's not realistic,
no,
because of funding and support and things like that, but yeah, if we can just get them up and moving.
I mean, even something as simple as, I'm going to send you to the back of the classroom to have a drink. They're getting up from their chair, they're walking to the back of the classroom, that's their alerting, they're moving and waking their body up. Drinking through a straw, so if they've got a bottle with a straw, it's very calming.
And for those individuals in secondary school as well, there's still options to do these sort of things. You think they have the option to move from one classroom to another. If it's possible for sort of more reasonable adjustments, can they go 5 minutes earlier so they can do the longer route, or can they be slightly later to the lesson so they don't have to deal with all the crowds? But also I've had a lot of conversation about subtle things that individuals can have in their pockets, because I know things like fiddle objects and stuff like that, especially in secondary and primary school, they're not encouraged because they turn into like fads, isn't it? It's a bit like yo-yos and Pokemon.
Yeah.
But actually, paper clips, rubber bands, blue tack, or a bit of bike chain, anything like that an individual could have in their pocket that they can then just fiddle with, that can also aid in that sort of
You
festival.
get like fiddle pens and things like that, can't you? Like for secondary, it depends on what the like uniform policy is, but you can also get like fiddle rings that look like just a normal ring. They're not going to stand out, but you can like I'm doing this on the video and you can't see. You can turn like the middle of it. It's a podcast. Remember talking.
We have to do that sometimes.
Yeah. You can spin the middle of it, so it's very subtle.
Yeah.
It's not attracting attention or anything like that.
And loop and calmers are becoming quite popular at the moment. And again, they don't look too obvious, but they also look a little bit more like your AirPods, that sort of things. And they can be really helpful. And again, having that open communication with school and going, this is what I've observed at home, and being again specific. Don't sort of, I think going through this, what I kind of would quite like to sort of keep saying is, try not to going at school to label everything for them, because sometimes there are so many labels out there. And I think this is what we talk about a lot in our assessments and why we do that holistic manner, because there is so many areas within areas, if that makes sense. Like, isn't there? Like, you've got dyslexia, but it's that iceberg analogy, isn't it? There's your bit at the top and actually everything underneath. If you just pinpoint the specific thing that individual's been struggling with, so is it that your child particularly struggles going from A to B at lunchtime, or transitioning through lesson, or they struggle at playtime, and then this is the thing that they've asked for, this is what you might want to try. And I know that might seem, for those families that have individuals that do struggle with so much stuff, obviously there are lots of things that can be put in place. However, I think trying to label everything can just make things so complicated, because you end up going, well, I've got ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, processing, working memory, auditory processing, visual processing, and it just becomes so jargony and complex, when we can go, actually they're just really struggling to get from A to B. Can we do this? What have you got that we can do that with?
Having these conversations with school are going to be really vital. Just getting them to, not going to them and saying, this is what they need help, like this is what needs to happen, but then I've noticed this is at home, is it something you've noticed at school, and up those lines of communication with school. Chances are they may have seen some of these behaviours at school where they are overly sensitive to certain lights, and or they've noticed that they are overwhelmed or quite emotional, but they haven't been able to pinpoint why. And there are so many things that schools are able to do that don't involve an extra adult or lots of extra resources, which we know schools don't have.
And I think also there's just so many, like, one person, and I think this is also the other thing, and again, I don't want anyone to think that we're discounting or moving away from using labels, because I do think it's important, especially if you do have someone that has ADHD or they do have autism. But there, you think, for a school, you've got 10 pupils with ADHD. Each one of those pupils is going to have to need completely different support, because it's so different for everyone. Every single individual with autism, they will need completely different support, because one person might flourish in one situation and the other might struggle, and vice versa. So I think what I'm trying to say anyway, and I think you're agreeing with me a little bit on it. Are you agreeing with me?
Yes, I know. Go ahead and I'll see.
Maybe we should confer before we start this. Is that actually, if you can just pinpoint those things that they're struggling with and the things that have worked in the past, schools tend to be quite open to support, because that's what they're there to do. They're there to help individuals learn and thrive and support them. But I think sometimes going to them and going, my child has autism, kind of blows their mind, because they then go straight into, well, do we need a one-to-one to support? Are they going to need extra tuition? Are they going to need an EHCP? Are they going to need all of these extra things, when actually
you could focus on the sensory processing and see what impact that could make? Because it could be that for a child who has ADHD or autism, actually they're coping relatively well, But if you could regulate this, then it negates the need for that one-to-one, because they're feeling more secure within themselves. They're not tipping into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode as frequently, and therefore not needing all of the additional funding parts of it.
Yeah. And I think also just ensuring that you're building sort of sensory friendly sort of activities into the routines in the day. So thinking about what they're doing in the morning. Is it sort of breakfast? Like Abby says, for breakfast they have a smoothie through a straw that helps with a bit of regulation. What are they doing on the school journey? Are they on the bus or are they in the car? What are they doing in the car? Do we have a weighted blanket, or do you have a box in the boot that's got fiddle toys, weighted blanket, something vibrating, like a vibrating pillow or noodle or something?
I mean, if it's anything like my car, it's an extra toy box, to be honest. But it's always something on the go.
But do you have anything like that in the car? And again, when you're collecting, do you let your child or young person have 10 minutes in the playground where they can just really sort of blow out? Do you, particularly on the route home, stop off and go to a play park, or do you walk home? Sort of just integrating those little things and having it at the forefront of your mind of what are we doing and does it have a purpose? Because again, is it actually, once they get in the car, you put some headphones on and they listen to their favourite podcast or song or something like that for the journey home to aid in that regulation?
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to end, because I mean, we could talk about sensory, I think.
I feel like that's real cutting
for
off
hours.
there.
I was just cutting you off, keeping you coming back for more, guys. But there are so many things that we could suggest.
Anyway, till next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Sensational Life with Bibic. We hope you're leaving with new insights, fresh ideas, and a bit more inspiration than when you press play.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe. And if you have a moment, leave us a review. It really helps us reach more listeners and grow this amazing community.
If you've got a question, a story to share, or a topic you'd love us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at thesensationallife@bibic.org.uk.
And don't forget to come over and say hello on social media. Follow Bibic to stay up to date with episodes, extras, and maybe some behind the scenes bits.
Until next time, keep it sensational.